Welcome to this special meeting of the Board of Directors of the Midpeninsula Regional Open Space District. I am Margaret McNiven, President of the Board of Directors. This meeting is now called to order. It is 5:30 p.m. This meeting is being held in person at the district's administrative offices and by teleconference. Roll call, please.
Director Gleason,
Here.
Director Christine Tucker,
Here.
Director Riffle,
Here.
President McNiven,
Here.
Director Holman is absent, Director Kishimoto,
Here.
Director Sear.
Present.
Thank you.
There's one item on tonight's special meeting agenda, parking area design guidelines.
Chairman Niven and board members, I'm Susanna Chen, Assistant General Manager, and I will present the draft parking area design guidelines to you tonight. Joining me virtually are consultants. We have a consultant with CSW. We have Jesse Moran and also Bob Berklin. They are here, and they will help me answer any question you may have, and they will have an opportunity to introduce themselves at the end of the presentations. So let's just first take a look at the general manager's recommendation. Is to review and approve the proposed parking area design guidelines with final changes as requested by the board. However, if significant revisions are required, we ask the board to authorize the general manager to execute a $15,000 contract amendments to allow us to work with the consultant to prepare iterations for you for your considerations. This set of design guidelines were developed specific to address the aesthetic design aspect of the parking area projects. They are consistent with the district's missions and goals, and they work in conjunction with all the existing district policies that are applicable to parking areas. I will provide you some backgrounds about why we are developing these guidelines, and also will walk you through the guiding document. As you know, the district's 70,000 acres of open space contains really diverse and scenic landscapes, from redwood forest to the coastside grassland to the bayside wetlands. They host incredible, diverse life. And the district's mission is to preserve and restore this landscape, this lands, and also provide ecologically sensitive public access and enjoyment. We did receive a comment that pointed out that the district's mission is to provide ecologically sensitive public enjoyment, not public access. It's a very interesting point, but I just wanted to point it out to the board that the district's basic policy, which is our fundamental policy to provide guidance on how to implement the district's missions, and we consider that basic policy is the district's constitutions. And in that document, it states that to provide public access appropriate to the natural nature of the land and that are consistent with ecological values and public safety. So in other words, public access is part of our missions. We provide ecologically sensitive public enjoyment through public access. I also want to mention that as the voter approved Measure AAA in 2014, and as part of that Measure AA, the district commits to provide public access throughout our preserve. As we looking into the parking area design guidelines, we historically provided historically provided small parking area that is gravel and relatively small. And on the map, on the slide, it's an example of those relative small parking area. However, as the visitation to the districts the preserve grows over time, the demand for larger and more parking area also increase. As we thinking about the demand, as we're thinking about the demand for this parking area, we sorry. As we're thinking about this parking demand, we looked at that the parking areas and this is as the parking demand increase, the need for larger parking area also increase. And as I mentioned earlier, the Measure AA passage allowed the district more funding resources to improve our public access elements of our missions that also allow us to provide more parking area as well as more expansion of our existing parking areas. Additionally, when we are looking at parking area design over time, there's more regulations such as ADA requirement, such as the stormwater management requirements, as well as the district's recent implementations of the transportation demand management strategies that require to help us manage parking demand, all contributed to leading bigger parking areas and incorporating some of the design elements that typically seen in the more urban parking areas. All these factors affects the aesthetic design of a parking area and also prompted the board's interest to provide some guidance on how to design our parking areas to make sure that our design incorporated the natural and open space character into our parking area design. So in response to your request, we hire a consultant, CSW, to help us with designing the parking area guidelines. In March of just a couple months ago, we came to you to share some of the key elements of the design guideline documents, including the values, the typologies, and also the list of design elements to get your early feedbacks. And you provided some very insightful feedbacks, and your comments were focusing on the tones and the emphasis of the documents to create a sense of place. And you also provided a lot of comments on the value statement. You also provided some feedbacks on the design elements, adding some elements to the list and also removing some elements. All your comments have incorporated into this draft document, and we also incorporated staff's comments as part of the process. A lot of staff were participated and also contributed to the shaping this document. So tonight we wanted to bring that before you to take a look at the documents together. Now, let's first take a look at what is this design guideline document. It is a framework for ensuring appropriate open space and natural world aesthetic characters and design elements are integrated into the district's preserved parking areas. The development of this guiding document center on the district's 2 mission statements, align with the board-approved missions, vision plan goals, and they work in conjunction with other applicable district policy, such as basic policy, resource management policy, and policies. This document meant to provide guidance throughout the life of a parking area projects, and they offer a shared understanding of the district's expectations on parking area design. They also serve as a tool for the board to use when you are evaluating and approving parking design concept plans. This is a living document. We anticipate it's going to be some iterations, some updates to the document as the guidelines are tested with projects that with different constraints, different sizes, different sensitivities, and it will also be informed by the lesson learned from implementing, operating, managing these parking areas. And the guiding documents have 3 key elements. The first one is valued. Value expresses the district's values in relation to parking area. They need together ecological sensitive public access with the functional requirements. This value statement meant to be applied and reflected throughout the design process of a parking area project. The second set of guiding documents is approach. Approach describes the design approach that respects and complements the land's physical, visual, and cultural integrities. And this set of guidelines also informs the entire life of the project, but they are particularly helpful during the early phases of a project, such as siting a site or the feasibility study or conceptual designs. The last element of this guiding document is the design elements. The elements describe a set of guidelines for the design of specific parking lot elements. They ensure that our visitors have a consistent experience across all preserves. And let's now take a closer look at each section of this design guidelines. First, let's take a look at the parking area values. And the values are very important to the design of a parking area. They are the foundation of everything we do related to designing a parking area. And we have 4 value statements that to capture the district's values related to parking area. And the board has provided a lot of feedback when we brought this to you in March. And I highlighted some of the key words, and then I wanted to read it to you so that to give you a chance to kind of take this in. The first value statement is to respect the natural landscape and cultural setting, avoid or limit ecological impacts by focusing on opportunities to utilize principles and methods of land preservation, restoration, and the appreciation of natural and rural landscapes while working with the requirements that vehicle-based public access presents. When possible, utilize aesthetically appropriate design elements to reflect and complement the surrounding environment. And the second value statement is to establish a transition zone. Place and design parking areas that harmonize with the natural surroundings. Parking areas serve as the public's transitional spaces between the surrounding urban and suburban fabrics of the greater region and the natural open space preserved. Minimize the visual and aesthetic and sensory impacts of parking areas on the land. Design parking areas and trailheads to be visual gateways to the open space preserve that help transition visitors into the natural world environments. And one of the key points under this value that was pointed out by the board is that it's not just minimizing the visual impacts, the aesthetic sensory impacts is equally important and then should be mindful of. And the third value is to exhibit a sense of place. Express a consistent district design ethos across all preserves by highlighting local, environmental, and cultural context and the natural and rural aesthetic character of the preserve and setting. Parking area and trailhead design serves to provide visitors with a visual, experimental understanding of the district's value and mission. Seek opportunities to celebrate the unique attribute of the preserve. And the fourth one is to address sustainable construction and maintenance practices. Design using environmentally sustainable materials, colors, textures, and construction practices that reflect and are compatible with the natural setting. Consider financial and staff resources impacts in design choices. Select durable, no maintenance design elements to minimize long-term maintenance requirements. So those are our values. Now let's take a look at the approach. Approach establish an underlying design rationale across district projects to support the expression of authentic sense of place for each site. There's some key design principles that apply when we considering designing a parking area. It includes we should embrace the district's mission, value, and standards, and we should investigate, uncover, and highlight the site's sense of place. And also very importantly, we want to embed district's natural resources management and operation and maintenance policies and practices into the design process. And we want to understand the site programming and balance it with the site opportunity and constraints. And last but not least, we want to establish the project's landscape architectural design to subsequently guide the necessary engineering elements. And this principle speaks to that we don't want to let the engineering principle to dictate the project design. We want to establish the landscape architect design first and use the engineering practices to support that. So the topics that cover under the approach sections is listed here. It includes typologies. Typologies are just the general grouping of landscape or cultural characters. We also, under this approach sections, we also touch on inclusive design, view sheds, siting and layout, grading, drainage, colors and texture, materials, vegetations, soil and fire management. And the details are in the document, but I wanted just to circle back with the board because in March, when we came to you, we asked you feedbacks on the list of typologies. And after feedbacks from staff and also further considerations, the the final list of typologies a little different than when you reviewed the list. We ended up with just have two types of natural landscape typologies, forested sites, also open sites. And the cultural landscape typology is the same as what we showed you last time, including the cultural sites and the agricultural sites, and also cultural and archaeological sites. Now we are getting to the last sections of the document, which is the design elements. And this is the list of design elements that is covered under this sections, including surfacing, striping, shoulder, edge restraints, wheel stop, and some of the other elements. So here I just wanted to highlight a few topics that are of the board's interest. And the first one I wanted to talk a little bit more about is striping. Striping is something that was brought up a lot when we talk about parking area design. And the desire from the board is to look at how we can utilize more of the natural color striping to delineate our parking spaces. We, the consultant and district staff, we investigate this thoroughly. And what we learned is that there's some very strict design standard related to parking marking. So in the California Uniform Traffic Control Device Manual, MUTCD, if you have heard of this term, that is the California's official design standard for traffic control devices. And in the MUTCD, it specified that the traffic, the parking area marking has to be white. So it doesn't really, it used the term should be white. So it doesn't give a lot of wiggle room for us to deviate from that requirement. And the MUTCD is incorporated into the government code as well as the vehicle code. And the two counties that we are working within, the San Mateo County and Santa Clara County, they both reference the government code and the vehicle code in their local code. And they are the permitting agencies that we need to apply permits from when we develop a parking area. So I just want to share that information. We definitely try to really look at if we can have that flexibility to deviate from that. So I just want to share that information with the board. Another point of interest is the signage. There was also a lot of conversation about the support of the signage. We currently in the document, it allows both metal sign, metal posts or wood posts. And the document gives the flexibility to the designer to decide which type of signpost to use, depends on the context. For example, if we're designing a parking area in a wet barn area, it's a very rural setting, we should consider using wood posts. But if we are putting a post in Rancho, maybe a metal pole, it's okay. So that's currently in the guiding document. However, staff has looked into this further. We wanted to know if there's any specific requirement restrict us to use a certain type of poles, and we didn't find any. So there's no specific requirements that we have to use certain type of poles. So if the board wanted to provide some guidance on how to use or when to use certain type of poles, it is okay that for the district to make it as a strong recommendation or a standard that we utilize wood poles for signage within our parking area. That's only one area that I wanted to kind of bring it up and caution the board, is that all our parking area, we have to provide ADA parkings, and the ADA parking space is typically paved with concrete, and the parking space is required to have a sign to associate with that parking area. And the sign post is usually set in concrete. And if we can use wood pole, but it will be really difficult to replace. And the signpost is usually taller than the regulatory signs that we have within the preserve. And then, so if we have a longer, taller wood pole that may potentially need more frequent replacement, and setting in concrete, it's harder to replace. So that will be just one of the consideration if we consider setting some kind of standard to use wood pole for our preserve. And then the last topic I just wanted to mention is that at the March meeting, board suggested that we remove EV charging stations from the list. We have since talked to the city, to the county of San Mateo, and they confirmed that in the county's general plan, there's a requirement to install EV charging stations in parking lots. And the planning staff that we talked to indicated that all the discretionary permits, which most of our parking area projects under that category, are required to comply to the general plan requirements. So in light of that, we kept the EV charging station information under the parking technology section, and just minimally mention that we need to make sure that we provide adequate infrastructure to support EV charging stations installations. So those are the few topics I want to highlight under design elements. And before I go to the next step, I wanted to address a couple comments that we received just the last couple of days related to the impact to the parking lot project's impact to the natural environment, and the suggestions of providing net benefits for those projects. We appreciate those comments because protecting or restoring natural resources is part of our missions. It embedded into everything we do, including building parking areas to meet our other leg of the missions. However, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the presentations, that this parking area design guideline document is developed with the focus on the aesthetic aspect of the parking area design. It worked in conjunction with all the existing policies, such as the resource management policies, our basic policies. And a lot of those concerns that was mentioned in the comments have already been addressed in those policies. So I just wanted to point that out. In terms of the net benefits, that is consistent with our missions, and it was considered when we were developing the mitigation policies. However, we don't necessarily apply that concept at every single project site. That approach is better to implement at the regional and landscape levels, because that will allow us to focus our resources on those high value, high impact high quality area that is more beneficial to our native species and also our natural environment. And oftentimes when we are selecting a site for parking area, we strive to place those parking area in areas that it's already disturbed or have low values. So they often do not rise to the top as a priority site for restorations. And when we usually when we consider the priority, that is a part of the larger planning efforts for a preserve, for an area as part of the preserve plan or the comprehensive use and management plans. So I just wanted to address some of those comments here, and our natural resources staff are here and they can provide more information if you have more questions. And now I just wanted to get to the next step. If the board provide comments that we can incorporate it into the existing contract with the consultant, we can finalize the document and put the document in use. If the comments from you tonight are significant, it requires significant revisions. As I mentioned earlier, and we asked the board to authorize contract amendments to allow us to work with the consultant to address your comment and provide new iterations of the document to bring it back to you for your review. So that could be another outcome of tonight's meetings. That brings me back to the general manager's recommendations. And before I turn this back to the board, and I wanted to give our consultant an opportunity to make a few comments and introduce themselves.
Thank you, Susanna. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah, okay, great. So thank you, Susanna, for the chance to just kind of introduce ourselves, to put some faces to the names. I am Jessie Marin. I'm a project manager with the landscape architecture team at CSW Stuber Stroh Engineering Group. And I'm here with my colleague, landscape architect Bob Birkland. Just a little bit about our experience. Bob's design work, his career includes design work on the Mount Umunum site restoration and public access project, as well as work at Alpine Pond and early work at La Honda. CSW as a whole, some of our current projects with Midpen include the Hawthorns Area Plan, Parissima by the Sea, and we're just kind of getting started with the expansion of the Parissima Creek Redwoods, the Northridge parking area, and having some discussions about design guidelines as we go into that process. As designers, we recognize and share your commitment to ensuring that your parking areas going forward reflect that sense of place, that they don't compete or conflict with the beauty and wonder of their immediate surroundings or the larger preserve in which they're located, and that they're in alignment with Midpen's missions. So we understand the guidelines as being focused on the aesthetic aspects of design, establishing a framework, that set of shared expectations about how each design considers and responds to the open space character present in the site. As designers are really concerned about the site itself, but the guidelines are also intended to be specific to your ethos and flexible enough to address the range of environmental contexts that are present across the district's preserve. So we're really honored to be here with you tonight to hear your comments firsthand and your feedback, and as necessary to support Susanna in responding to any questions that you might have. So thank you. I'll turn it back over to you, Noah.
Thank you. So we turn it back to the chair, and
Okay.
we're here to answer questions.
Well, let's start with questions from the board. Director Holman.
I have a couple of three just really basic questions about EV stations, for instance. We discussed that at the last meeting.
Right.
I'd be surprised, but I don't know that EV parking, that EV stations will be required in parking lots in such remote and rural areas. So is it countywide, no matter if you're on a mountaintop 30 miles from the next anything?
Yeah, we asked that question too. We have a specific projects that are gonna require county permits. And we specifically asked them, this is our context, this is our project size, and it's in remote location. Is that really a requirement? And the answer is yes, because it is in the county's general plan. And our project, if we require a permit from them, the expectation is that we have to meet the general plan requirements. But that is just San Mateo counties, and we have not experienced the same in Santa Clara County.
That is so counterintuitive. It's like, okay, get power out there.
Yeah.
I have a lot of comments, but where to focus here? On the same thing actually with the striping. Same question with striping.
Yeah.
Is white striping required in any parking lot, no matter again what the setting is, how remote it is? And that doesn't preclude, of course, non-striping. It just means if you stripe, it has to be white.
Yeah, if that's what the guidelines, that's what actually the design standard says, that the pavement or the parking area marking has to be right.
But the other part of that question is that standard true for even remote areas? It's sort of like the EV question. Is it true even if you're 50 miles from anywhere? You still have to use the urban 4-inch wide white stripes.
Right, so it goes back to, we have to apply a permit from the county to, for this type of projects. And the guidelines or the requirements apply to us,
Is that San Mateo and Santa Clara County?
yes.
There are some rules that need to change.
Yeah,
It's just nonsensical. Both of those nonsensical to me.
I understand, and we really try to look to see if it's
I
any way
appreciate-
that we can
I
deviate from
appreciate
that.
your-
And from the traffic control perspective, the colors matters, and this colors represents certain meanings. And the MUTCD specify different colors represent different things. And white is for regulations, so.
White's a nurse's uniform. No, I understand when it would come to a handicap spot and the blue designation. I mean,
Yeah.
that makes sense to me. And blue is something you do actually find in nature, maybe not that exact blue, but
Yeah.
blue, but white, you just, the report did a great job of listing myriad colors that you found in
I know.
nature. White was not there. I'm going to just stop with those basic questions
Right.
and go on to somebody else, but I do have certainly other questions and comments.
Director Gleason.
Yeah, to follow up on that. So it's basically, if you're going to stripe, then you have those requirements. But if you were to say have permeable pavers or something else, or just gravel, and you can still not stripe at all. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
if we don't strike, then we oftentimes cannot efficiently utilize the parking space.
sure.
That is kind of the experience that a
Right.
few staff report.
And do you happen to know if green striping has a specific meaning in these codes? Because at my parking lot at work, there's a section that is green striped.
So let me go into my. So from the code perspective, green indicates movements or actions permitted in direction guidance. So that is what green means. This is not specific related to striping, but in terms of traffic control, green, that's what that means. Yeah. And then oftentimes we see for parking, related to parking, green is for temporary parking.
Sorry.
Green zone, it's for temporary parking. Yeah. Does that answer your question? No.
I'm not sure. We have a whole parking lot. It might have a specific purpose, but it's all green striped. And I don't think it's just temporary parking, but
Mm.
um,
And maybe we can, I can talk to you offline and take a look
okay.
at the specific sites, and then we can look into it and see what is the history behind
Sure.
that. Is it a private parking lot?
I mean, it's it's at a business.
Okay, yeah, yeah. And oftentimes those guidelines be applied to public space.
I see. Okay.
Director Riffle.
Thank you, Susanna, for this. And just full disclosure, I wasn't here for the first meeting,
Yes.
so I'm not
Yeah.
going to try to reinvent any of that.
Right,
So
right,
I'm
right.
just kind of taking what you all did, and this all looks pretty
Yes.
good, darn good to me. But my question is actually a little bit more from kind of going forward. So with EVs, I drive a EV, or one of my cars is an EV, and I think we are all in one form or another going to be driving more EVs in the future.
Mhm.
So I'm actually thinking we probably are going to need to figure that out in one form or another, just because I think that's where the demand is probably going to drive us.
Yeah.
But sorry for the pun, but that's number one. So I was okay with that. But that also made me kind of think about kind of incorporating, well, what's the parking lot going to look like 5 or 10 or 15 years from now?
Mhm.
And I'm just thinking about Rancho, and I'm thinking about having the ability to be able to tell before you get there parking, is
Yeah.
the parking spot open?
Yes.
You know, to
Yeah.
so there's I don't know if that should go into the guideline, but I'm thinking we probably should be considering some of that kind of future
Mhm.
of maximize the use of our parking area. And I wasn't sure if I saw a lot of that. So that's kind of one question. Maybe I'll let you answer that, and then I just have a
Okay.
follow-on.
Thank you for that questions, and thank you for having that long view for our parking areas. The parking area design guidelines are more focusing on the aesthetic treatments of parking area.
Yeah.
So that wasn't the focus. But I think you're absolutely right. As we are designing new parking area, we should have that considerations for incorporating some of the potentially incorporate some of the parking technologies in the future. So even though we are not considering right now, we should, as part of the design, to provide some, to allow the permission for those future installations. And by doing, in order to do that, we should consider putting in some underground infrastructures
Right.
that to allow us for ease implementation in the future.
Okay. I don't know if that means the document needs to be changed. I'm not sure if that's it or not.
Yeah, if the board wants us to incorporate that visions into this document, we can definitely incorporate that under the parking technology sections to provide some guidance on that.
Right. Okay. And then my second question, which is kind of associated with that, is we're kind of heavily assuming that people arrive at our preserves in a car, which is 90%, 95% true. But boy, there's people that, we're hoping arrive by their bikes, or they arrive in a van, or they arrive in an Uber, or they arrive, gosh, see Jerry here on their horse, and are we accommodating enough for kind of the multi-mode that
Yes.
we hope? Actually, I hope more people arrive not in their car.
Right.
And so I'm just wondering, is there enough of that? Because this seemed pretty car-centric to me, which that's
Right.
kind of the world we're living
Right.
in right now, but is that kind of what we want to encourage?
Also very good points. So we definitely have elements specific to equestrian amenities. That's actually in response to a public comments, and then we incorporated that. This round, we also received some comments on related to pedestrian access
Yeah.
and also bicycle accommodation. So those are all very good comments that we can incorporate into the document.
That's it for now. Thank you.
Okay. Director Kishimoto.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, yeah, I think definitely compared to what we have today, which, you know, we don't have guidelines at all.
Mhm.
It's, these are definitely take us a long ways, but I also have a number of comments and questions. I'll start with a couple. Big one, let me see, one large one is like on page 7 of the report. It's of that attachment 1. You know, it talks about Mid-Penn and staff will need to consider the desired balance among
Mhm.
aesthetic, visitor experience, resource protection, public safety, upfront construction costs, and long-term maintenance requirements. So, so in a way, you're leaving that a little bit loose. I mean, you're kind of leaving that final call to be made case by case. Is that correct?
Well, the document is designed to provide flexibility, but from staff perspective, but we actually really like the board to provide us some guidance on your expectation on how to balance the aesthetic treatment that may potentially increase project costs versus, you know, the ongoing maintenance costs, the initial project costs, because we have heard in the past when we brought some of the project parking area project forward for the board's considerations, we heard comments about the cost is high, right? And so we wanted really to get some feedback from you on what is your expectations. If we can have some good understanding on the board's expectation, and maybe we can articulate better in the document and provide more concrete guidance. Yeah.
Or permeable by guidance.
So yeah, so thank you for asking that question. So that is actually the question in our mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
know. And
just-
I
just
mean,
to
it's
add
tough
that,
because, I mean,
Director-
it's, I mean, it made, you know, Mid-Penn is blessed to have, you know, pretty good resources right now, but
Right.
it may not always be true.
Right.
And that may change. But on the other hand, you know, when I think back on the basic policy, which I know we're going to be talking again and soon, but, you know, we did make that judgment about that environmental protection would trump the other
Right.
factors, and
Right.
whether, you know, whether we should repeat that here, or, you know, it's not as if we would do it at any cost. I mean, obviously we do value long-term
Mhm.
maintainability and,
Mhm.
you know, long-term, you know,
Mhm.
yeah, we're penny pinchers as well, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, we do care about the costs, but
Right.
um,
Yeah, where to strike that balance is, well, I mean, we know that we wanted to strike balance, but
Right.
where to kind of draw that line is where we were hoping that we get some more guidance from the board.
yeah. Well, I mean, it might be that, you know, we make a reference to that basic policy and say, you know, as the board and staff kind of look for that balance, that
Mhm.
we remember that
Mhm.
if push comes to shove, we
Mhm.
do value that long-term environmental protection,
Mhm.
you know, overall environmental
Mhm.
protection,
Right.
the highest. But
Right. Right.
so that's, you know, that's one comment. I don't know if that would mean some change on this or not, but
So, and maybe I want to ask some clarification. So environmental protection is a little different than like the focus of this document, which is the aesthetic treatment of a parking area. So there's
what
some
is different from the
Hmm?
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
So environmental protection, like
Environment protection.
now resource, protecting our natural resources. Those are, like, I think it's clear that it's a priority. It's in our missions. But in this document, we, the focus of this document is the aesthetic treatment of our parking area. And we want those treatment reflect our value, reflect our missions. And sometimes we have to make some design choices that maybe is more expensive than we go with the elements that doesn't reflect as much of our value. So that is the area that we want the board to provide some feedback.
I see.
That's
Okay.
right.
So you're, in a way, you're trying to separate kind of the functional, well, not when, I don't know if it's functional, but
maybe other-
the way it fits, our parking lots fit into our preserves ecologically. You want to set that aside and
So
This-
yeah, because there's different pieces, right?
Different pieces,
yeah.
yeah.
The considerations around ecological impacts,
yeah.
that is all handled through our resource management policies. And
Yes.
I'm gonna look and see if Kirk is here.
It's
I
right
think
here.
there he
I
is.
know.
Because those totally play into everything we do.
Yes.
Including where we even start looking for a potential parking area, and then
Right.
how you site that parking area in that zone. So that's those resource management policies are first and foremost before we even dive into these design guidelines. These design guidelines come after, once you have selected the appropriate site, selected the appropriate footprint and scale and that sort of thing. Now these come in as to, okay, what kind of materials are we going to
Yeah.
use to construct and design all the different elements of that parking area.
Mhm.
So it's really more towards aesthetic versus ecological protection. The ecological protection is addressed through those resource management policies from the beginning.
Mhm.
And Kirk, if you want to add
I
more
am
to that,
welcome.
by all means.
Oh, okay.
The other thing I also wanted to just bring up in terms of understanding the balance, the right balance to strike for this, is, of course, there's those direct upfront costs related to construction. That's one piece. The other piece is the long-term maintenance costs.
Mhm.
Because, and I say that, that I just want to make sure you don't forget that piece, because that's also important. Because not only do we have to account for that in terms of our costs, but we only have so many staff resources, right? And we do have the FOSM that we're going to be expanding our growth there. However, nonetheless, we have a limit in terms of the staff capacity. And it's the same staff who is maintaining our parking areas as who is maintaining our trails, our defensible space, our habitat restoration work, you know, all these other pieces that are also of great priority to the board. So we need to think about kind of what is the right balance there too, because the more we need to, the bigger the burden in maintaining those elements of the parking area, the more it's going to pull and redirect some of those resources to parking area maintenance and away from other program elements. So.
Okay. Well, actually, Director Holman said she had is that okay?
Fine.
And then I have lots of other questions.
Oh,
too.
yeah,
Okay.
just to the one point that Yoriko was just making, Director Kishimoto was just making about, you know, the basis. So about ecological, and I want to, when we get to it, I want to add biological to that too. But there's also siting, which is not just materials and, you know, the visual impact. So I concur with the questions and concerns that Director Kishimoto is raising. And when there are, my experience of however many years of doing this kind of stuff, my experience is like, if we have a document like this, if it's standalone, it's going to cause problems. because people are gonna go to this document and say, oh, well, this says this, and they're gonna go to this document and say, oh, this says this.
Mm,
But if there's not a cross-reference,
mm,
so there's a context for this document's use. And it
Mm.
goes to, I believe, and my intention is to be in concurrence with what Director Kishimoto is saying.
right.
Mm,
Th- That is very good comment.
So-
I mentioned it multiple times that this document with a very specific focus, and it worked in conjunction with all the existing policies that are applicable to parking area design. But we should provide
that
those
context.
references in this document so that it doesn't seem like it's a standalone document. That's a very good comment, and we can definitely do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Let's see. So bicycle parking is mentioned in here, but actually it's not called out as an element.
Yeah.
So, I think.
If the preference is to call out as a separate element, we can do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. So that would be great if we could do
Okay.
that. And there was another, and then, well, let me see. And then I was thinking, on the transition zones, you mentioned there's two transition zones, which is, one is the road to the lot, and then there's a lot to the trails.
Mhm.
And that section on that trail gateway, let me see if I can find what page it is. It seems a little bit, runs over that a bit. Hold on a second, sorry. Oops. Well, you might have to come back to me for that. Yeah, let me look for that. and maybe
Is
you
it
can come
on
back to
page
me.
8
Page 8.
that talks about the transition zone?
It
No.
could be. Anyways, well, let me come back to that later.
Okay.
Another question might be, so when I kind of test this against,
Mhm.
how we would use it.
Mhm.
So I remember Director Holman was asking that question about that red no parking sign.
Mm.
Yeah, that she saw at La Honda. So if I look at the signage section, it
Right.
is actually, it's pretty short.
Yes.
Yeah, and it just says use a minimalist approach to signage to
Yes.
create, avoid clutter.
Right.
And the sign frame should be metal.
Or wood. Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, there's nothing about, because signs are a big part of that aesthetic impact
Yes.
about whether, it's kind of some uniformity across the
Right.
preserves and,
Right.
and, just a certain aesthetic. And I don't see that here. Is that?
Yeah, so as part of my presentations, and I mentioned that right now this document is very flexible. It just gives the designers the choice, and just that you can use metal, you can use wood to support the design. Depends on the context. And I use example of like maybe Red Barn area, we wanted to use wood, but maybe in Rancho, it's okay to use metal. But I also said that we research to see if there's any specific regulatory requirements that we have to use a certain type of post, and we didn't find any. So that it's really becomes a policy decisions that the board can direct us to set that standard for the district. And I have talked to some maintenance staff, and I think they are okay with using wood posts. They agree that that is definitely more aesthetically pleasing and the more matching the district's the value
Right.
and more reflective of our values.
Except it's hard,
but
they're
there's
hard to
some-
replace. Yeah.
There's a trade-off
Yeah.
that for wood posts, the lifespan is definitely shorter than a metal post,
Yeah.
and we probably have to replace like 10 years. And
Yeah.
but I think if the board decided that it is important to use these elements to reflect our value, and this is a good opportunity, and the trade-off is worth it,
Yeah.
then we can set that standard. And then like I said, I mentioned that just in the ADA parking areas, because the post is going to be set in concrete, it's hard to replace. So, and that's the area that we probably wanted to look into that more. Yeah.
I know, I guess you get lost so much into these details so quickly, but
Yeah.
I know, it could be like corrugated steel, for example, which does
Yes,
have a
so
more
it
of
could
a-
be metal, that's
Yeah.
type of metals that it
Yeah.
weathers over time that create that rusty looks.
suppose
You
so,
can
but
do that.
I suppose the bigger thing is really whether we want, a more uniform look across the preserves, I
Mhm.
suppose, yeah.
Yeah.
And that one, so I don't know if the policy should be, since we have a sign shop, right? Do we do most of our signs still? I don't know if we still do. Okay. I know we used to do most of our signs, but maybe we don't anymore.
I don't believe we do so anymore.
Do we make signs?
Yeah, we've always contracted out for all of our signs.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we've been using the same sign shop for quite a while.
Okay, I
But,
thought.
San Mateo
so
County Parks has a sign shop, but yeah, we've never had.
Oh, really? Okay. I don't know where I got that impression, but okay. Thank you. But, okay.
Oh, and just to also mention on signs, we do have a sign manual that to control the look of signs throughout the district.
Okay. Including no parking signs and
Yes,
everything.
which are of course all standard kind of regulatory colors like white and black and red. Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, well, so I guess my point there is, yeah, just uniformity and just kind
Yeah.
of somebody looking at the overall. Instead.
Right.
Yeah.
So like I said, if the board agree and support that standard, we can work that into the design guidelines
Okay.
in terms of the poles supporting the signs.
All right, I have a couple others, but let me. let you
I
continue.
think it's okay.
Director McNiven, this is Director Kirstine Tucker.
Hi.
Hi, actually, I think perhaps,
Let me get the order right. First, Director Sear, and then you.
okay, very good, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, I don't have a question. I just imagining as we were discussing, I thought, well, there's a couple of $1 million more to run power to an obscure parking lot to run an EV charger. I mean, that would just astronomically increase the cost. I mean, we've been trying to deal with trying to get power to our Skyline office clearly, for quite some time. And so running into those design considerations that are folks who have the power to say yay or nay on your permit, are dictating in many respects the design. And I don't know where we go with that, but the cost increase just staggered me.
Okay. Director Kirsten Tucker.
Yes, thank you. My colleagues have raised many of the same questions and issues that I've been thinking about in reading this document. I appreciate the discussion. Actually, I really appreciated the letter from the Audubon Society and Sierra Club. Many of their comments were similar to mine, but I really did appreciate their focusing on natural resource protection versus maintenance costs and costs, keeping costs down. And I think our general manager really framed it well, that we have short-term costs of creating parking lots, we have long-term costs of maintaining them, and then we have the whole issue of aesthetics. And I really appreciated at our last meeting when we discussed this, Director Holman reminding us of Yosemite. And, our parking lots really are our gateways in many ways to our preserves. So, while of course we want to be mindful of cost, we also want to be mindful of the aesthetics. So I'm not sure that helps at all, other than to say that it's a balancing act, and making sure that we, in this perhaps document, cross-reference other policies that are relevant is important. Um, with regard to EVs and our transportation demand management strategies and how that might play out in our parking lots, I agree with Director Riffle. Having those amenities available will be important. I was thinking too about e-bikes and having charging abilities for e-bikes, even though we don't allow them in our preserves. People may be riding them to our preserves and may need to charge up. So thinking about that, maybe we don't need it quite so much right now, but I'm guessing we will in another 5 or 10 years. And then a question I had as I looked at the value statement. I'm gonna see if I can go back to it. Hold on. Sorry for a sec here. Yeah, exhibiting a sense of place. It says, express a consistent district design ethos across all preserves. And I started to think about this, and I think Director Kishimoto was going in this direction too. There are many elements in our parking lots that are the same. There's bathrooms, there's signage, there are bike racks, there are things of that sort. And we don't have necessarily a single kind of design for these things. And it seems like maybe standardization is appropriate, but maybe that just, I guess I'd like to hear our consultants talk about that. You know, we have a variety of parking lots. Do we want to have the same bathrooms in all of them, or the same bike racks in all of them, or the same trash cans, the same look? Or does that rob from our ability to make those amenities mesh with the location?
Okay, Jesse or Bob, you want to take that questions?
Yeah, I think I have a feeling that Bob's going to have some good, strong response to that question, but I just wanted to kind of introduce that to say that I think this comes back again to a question of direction. Yes, we do want to pursue the idea that there is the sense that your visitors have, that they understand that they're at a Mid-Penn facility, and that can be supported by using consistent, if not identical, elements across all of your preserves and all your parking areas. Our understanding is that you do have standard design details, perhaps for some of these elements, but it may be a question of how strongly those are expressed or relied upon, and where is there an opportunity to deviate from those when the context or kind of the significance of the parking area warrants that. Bob, did you want to expand on that?
Sure. I'm not sure I'm exactly expanding on it, but I think there's certain elements that you should consider just standardizing, like unless there's an unusual condition, site condition that warrants something different. Like if you have some paved paths for ADA, and that might create a trailhead that has, you know, a more of a paved area, that might be a particular bike rack, for instance, that you want to use there. If it's all gravel and dirt and very rustic, you would probably want to have the option to use a different bike rack, if for no other reason than the one in the pavement might look a little too refined in the more rustic setting. The restrooms, an example of that could be that what we did at Mount Umunhum, where we took a standardized restroom, but we placed an architectural concrete masonry unit screen in front of it to give it a little more presence and functionality in terms of screening what's a very large parking lot, looking at people using the restroom. So I think there's a lot of things you could standardize. I think it's wonderful to standardize signage. I still think you could have metal and wood posts, but as I think you have now, your signage panels should follow your color theme, graphic theme. There could be some evolution of that, of course, and at some point you'll probably redo them, and there'll be a new piece. But the parking lots want to be elegant and quiet in a very subtle way. They don't want to shout out that they're a special parking lot. And it really, I think, requires attention to the site itself and what is special there. And if you follow down an investigation of what is the context, what is the particular sense of place, there's something you can probably do with the siting of the entry road, the parking layout, the ADA paths up to the trailhead, that will both achieve that sense of place and give it its site-specific special character, while still using many of the standard district components.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is, or maybe something that we might consider would be in this document, reference any standardizations that we already have, whether it's with regard to signage or whatever, and then make it clear that we're leaving latitude to I don't know how to say, customize, if you will, these parking lots in a way that is site specific. So it seems like we have a little of both, and I actually really like that, but I think making it clear that some things we choose to standardize and some things we choose to leave, more aesthetically open, depending upon the site.
Yes, that's definitely an avenue that would be in line with the guidelines, and it acknowledges that the context is very different across all of your preserves, while also having kind of that root standard to refer back to.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess I just want to come back to the notion of cost versus aesthetics and natural resource protection. And I guess I would really always lean towards adding a little more to the cost if it means protecting resources, siting differently, or cleaving to that portion of our mission more. That's my perspective. Thank you.
Okay, great. Back to you, Director Holman.
Okay, thank you. Lots of good comments by folks. To signage, I've been focused on the signage at the as I sent Suzanne and General Manager, the signage at the Grasshopper Loop Trail parking lot, and it is it doesn't satisfy anything that I can see that would be appealing or appropriate at a nature preserve. It is literally a tall post with an urban sign on it. I think it's even a reflective sign that says no parking anytime. There's a series of 4 or 5 of them in a row. And behind it is this wonderful view of the rolling grasslands and a barn. And I showed it to, I'm repeating what I sent you in an email. I showed it to a friend, and her comment is like, which one of these things doesn't go with the others? And it's like, clearly that sign doesn't go. And it's like, it's eye litter, it's inappropriate materials, it's inappropriate colors, it's all kinds of things. So all of that said, I am not absolutely certain that this document would preclude that, but also what I heard Assistant General Manager Malone say is that we have, what do you say, that we have a sign manual. But I don't know how this document comports to that document. Are we saying things here in this document that are different than what's in the sign manual? I have no idea. I didn't know we had a sign manual that makes sense.
Yeah.
But that's part of the, these
cross-reference.
documents need to cross-reference, but they also need to make sure, and we need to, as we're approving this document, we need to make sure that we aren't building in internal conflict between one document and another. So that's, I think, serious thing that we ought to take up.
Yep.
Some other things. I went off without my reading glasses, so I'm kind of like, whoa. I'm doing okay so far, I think. On page 6, having to do with the cost versus the aesthetic. Page, if I can get to page 6 here. Come on. Page 8. I apologize. Oh, on page 6, under maintenance and operations, this is where that balance, it's like in one place, it seems like we're headed in the right direction, you know, of like being really responsive to the setting, to the environment, to the sense of place. And then there's, that Director Kishimoto was referencing too, then there are statements other places that bring up things like, is the last sentence here, it's like, maintainability should be, and I'm quoting here, front and center to all decisions made through the design phases. So to me, that prioritizes maintenance over the aesthetic, over the environmental context, over, you know, so other places it seems like it's okay. And then there's something like this that just makes my hair stand on end.
Yeah.
So those inconsistencies I find fairly often in the document. I'm not going to go through and highlight every one of them. If you want to meet separately and do that, I can do that if you want to point them out. But I think this needs another look so that we don't have these internal conflicts. But that's a major one for me, internal conflict. And a couple other places, like on page 5, it references standards too, and I'm kind of like, what standards and what guidelines do we have that are otherwise unknown to some of us, maybe not all of us. On page 4, the quick reference use of guidelines, that table, the construction and maintenance guidelines section, it eliminates approach from those two categories, maintenance and construction. And there are just an awful lot of things that can happen to a project's design and focus even during the construction and maintenance stages of a project, especially as time goes on with the maintenance. And so I don't know why they're removed. But it's problematic to me, given the document even says that a lot of changes can happen during the construction phase.
Yeah, thank you for the comments. And we kind of debated that here. We wanted to highlight that the approach section is more helpful for the early phases of during the early phases of the project. But those principles, those guidelines, it's applicable throughout the process. So we debated maybe we should use maybe an uppercase to uppercase for some of those phases, but then lowercase for the area that this document is less important during those phases. That we kind of debated that, but your comment is well taken, and then we will address that in our next round.
Okay, and I'm not sure about the uppercase and lowercase. It's like it's the bases, the guidelines are, I would think, consistent throughout in terms of importance.
Yeah, and or we can just check them all, or yeah.
Okay. And let's see a bit. I don't know how to do this. I didn't go through this. I'm sorry. Okay, here's another place where on page 8, under this is values. And again, there's some very good things in here, and then you run across something that just like grabs your gut and kind of goes, uh-oh. So under on page 8, under values, the very last section there is saying address sustainable practices. And it to me clearly directs that you design using environmentally sustainable materials and colors and textures. And that to me is a statement about the financial impacts. You want to try to do that. You want to strive to do that. But then the last sentence, there is select durable, low maintenance design elements to minimize long-term maintenance and requirements. So to me, rather than consider, as the prior sentence says, it says select, which to me says choose metal signs instead of wooden signs. It seems to direct that because it uses the word select. So it doesn't soften it at all
Okay.
to me.
I'm going to interrupt here.
Yeah.
If that's okay with
Sure.
you. We've got 10 minutes before our board meeting,
Oh, gee.
and I do have a public comment.
Okay.
So what, Director Kishimoto, do you have more questions?
I do, but you can go ahead with the public comment.
Okay, let's go ahead with public comment, and then at least we can get that done before the board meeting. Jerry Wittenauer.
Just a very brief public comment. I just came here representing the equestrian folks. We did submit some input back in March, I think, when this topic first came up about incorporating equestrian amenities into the document. And I just wanted to acknowledge and thank you for paying attention to our comments, and your document includes everything that we would have asked for. And we're few in number out there, the horse riders, but it's a refreshing and gratifying to see that there's some accommodation in your policy document for the horse folks. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to interrupt and take one comment myself, which is I did read through the Sierra Club and the Audubon Society's remarks, and it seems to me that their concern is habitat, as the land over the habitat, parking areas over habitat. And I've just seen one or two parking places come up for discussion. And my question is to Natural Resources. Do you feel comfortable with how much, especially since we're going to cross-reference with our other policies, I feel that Natural Resources kind of are taken care of you in this document. Do you, as a natural resource staff, feel that this is adequate, or do you want more specifics in this document to protect those little red stem beauties, for example?
Thank you, Kirk Lennington, Natural Resources Manager. Yeah, we have spent quite a bit of time and effort compiling our resource management policies document. And there's, we can go through and we can incorporate that and cross-reference it into, I think, this guidelines document and make sure that we're connecting the right pieces of that. There's also another process, which is our preserve planning process that really is where this type of issue around where to site all the different infrastructure that goes into our preserves when we're developing them for public access, trails, parking lots, as well as all of the restoration and habitat management and rare endangered species management. And all of that gets looked at as a whole, and to identify where those conflicts might arise, how to avoid those, where the particular opportunities are, and all of which goes into our management of a preserve. And so that, in my mind, is where we address this issue of where should we put parking lots? Where should we put public access? Where should we not put public access? And so that process is another one of those documents that needs to be wrapped into this guidelines document. I think that's the missing piece that the board's been discussing.
Yes.
And so we can look to that and incorporate those references.
Great. Thank you.
President McNiven, we did have 2 requests for virtual public comments
Yeah, I'm sorry, I
from
forgot
the
to-
Shelley Leeds and Shawnee Coinhouse, but neither of them are currently online.
Right. I think they're the Sierra Club and Audubon people. Yeah. So thank you. All right. 3 minutes.
Okay.
Start the click.
Actually, I have one suggestion. There was a previous comment, I don't know who made it, was maybe Director Riffle said what seemed too auto-centric for we're calling it parking lots. And actually, usually we've been calling them staging areas and not parking lots. So can we change that? I mean, as a phrase for this? I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about. We don't have to call it multimodal, staging area, but then in a way, that's what we're talking about. So instead of saying parking lot design, staging area design, that would go a long ways to address that multimodal. Is there any problem with that?
At the pressure of the board, yeah, we can entertain the
That is
name of the
really, yeah,
company.
I mean, it almost feels a little bit like an internal nomenclature. I'm not sure, I don't know how many members of the public refer to it as staging areas, but we can call it that.
Well, because I mean, we do mean it for more, more and more shuttles or more, more bicycles, electric
is
bikes
true.
or whatever, right? So we don't want to call it just a car parking lot.
We're not calling it car, calling it
Well,
parking.
parking lot.
Bicycle parking. Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's my suggestion. And then just quickly on that trailheads one, it's on page 20 of the document. And that's one that kind of just probably seems to need a little bit of cleanup. Like it refers to providing potable water, and I don't think we provide potable water anywhere. Or it talks about err on the side of wider trails everywhere, and I don't think that's that's not necessarily our so that we should just kind of refer to the trail guidelines, and so that kind of jumped out at me. But on the other hand, the brushes, the boot brushes and bike brushes, in a way, it's that first sentence would this kind of emphasize that the trailheads are an important another important transition zone that should be carefully designed. So I don't think like restrooms is provided somewhere else. I don't think that belongs in there. Okay, that's my comments.
We're just going to go late.
Okay.
Director Gleason.
Thank you. I'll try not to make this too long. First, I want to thank the CSW consultants for coming, and for the staff for bringing them in as well. I want to say I have a huge respect for the Mount Amanon project, and I think it's a place where you can look to the different transitions that are there as really, really good examples of the things that we're talking about. It goes from these places that are clearly highly engineered to places that are restored and places that are natural. And each transition is really nice. It just leads you in. So I really like that as an example of what we're talking about. I hope that we can extend this discussion to road and trail construction and maintenance in the future. And the thing in particular is, I think one thing that's relevant here is, and several people have talked about it, we need maybe to think differently about cost and value, because there might be some old rules of thumb that people have used where they say, well, to be financially responsible, we need to make this decision. But we really need to look at the value of the alternate decision. And I think there are probably more places where we may want to bubble up those discussions and actually talk about it and say, does this, is there enough value in spending this extra money here or taking on extra maintenance cost? And just one other comment to the general manager's discussion about the sort of environment first. You think about that first. I think we've also seen cases like the Bear Creek North parking lot where the aesthetic discussion may have actually led us into a better environmental option as well, and lower cost option. So I think it's actually important to be thinking of them together, and you can still have your priorities, but I think that's an important thing to consider. So I would definitely support a little further work to refine the document based on the discussion tonight. Thanks.
Director Riffle?
Are we in comment or question? Because,
Well, we're sort of on to comments at this point,
okay.
if that's okay.
Oh, definitely. I'd like to move on. So I think it's a great idea. So my comments overall are this, is that my understanding of this is a guideline, not a manual. And I guess having worked with Kirk and Cody long enough, I'm a real fan of adaptive management. And I'm kind of, I like what we have here. We can probably spend 2 hours going through and changing this thing, but I kind of am thinking, let's go with this. Maybe have a few tweaks here and there, but let's go with this and let's refine it as we go. And then my third comment is, and Director Gleason just brought up a good point. I don't know in a way what problem are we trying to solve, because we've done, I think, a pretty good job on parking lots. Maybe we don't have enough of them. And yep, we flooded a neighbor's basement once or twice, but on the whole, I'm pretty happy with what we have out there. And so I'm just concerned a little bit that we're kind of drifting into a design manual here when I want it to be a little bit of a lighter touch, because I think, as Kirk brought up, as we really rely on that project, I'm not thinking the right word, Kirk, but the
planning.
the plan, you know, that planning document that
Yeah.
takes into account all of this
Right.
stuff. And I think we've done that pretty well. So I'm just a little concerned that we're starting to auger in here on something that I think is maybe going to cause a little more administrative burden that I think we need. So that's where I'm at. So I'm actually happy to make a general manager's recommendation at the appropriate time. Not sure it's going to hold here, but I'm happy to move forward with it.
Which part? Oh, are you authorizing the,
I suspect we are, but
right?
we're not through with board
Okay,
comment.
all
Yeah,
right, okay.
okay.
So, there've been a lot of good comments and thoughts tonight. Director Riffle brings up a good point, and I wonder, well, a couple of things. So, and I'm not bringing up 15 examples, but like the example that I brought up earlier, it's like, well, don't we need something that would preclude that from happening? That's my opinion. And what would that be if not a document like this? But maybe what we should be doing is, not knowing that some of these other policies exist, maybe we should be like looking at those and refining them and cross-referencing them. And this is an exercise that, maybe you should just be merging those documents. I don't know, because I haven't seen those other policies and documents and sign manuals and that sort of thing. So it's a little confusing to me. One of the other things that hasn't been mentioned tonight, and with due respect, I found the document to not have enough illustrative examples. And usually documents like this, just from my experience, they usually have like some inclusion of like this, not that. So it's clear like what's desirable and what isn't desirable. And I also found, so there weren't very many drawings and nothing like that I would interpret that way. And the other is that some of the drawings were really hard to interpret, and the printing on them is very much architect script, if you will, but it's very hard to read in some cases too. So I think some of the drawings need to be additional drawings to clarify better what we're talking about, and also some cleanup or revision to some of the existing drawings. Something we didn't talk about, just as a possibility, is, and it's one of the drawings I couldn't quite make out what was, I'm not going to find it fast enough. There was a page that had logs as bumpers, had timbers as bumpers. And there hasn't been any discussion of this, but I mean, people are pretty smart. People are, in the universe, we're all selfish, but we're all pretty smart too. And it seems to me if you put timbers down that are of a length or width, whatever you want to look at it, as a parking space, and maybe even put some kind of symbol on them or something, subtle symbol, people are gonna pull into those spaces. They're not gonna like, I don't think, straddle or do a parallel park across 4 of those. And we might be able to do away with at least the majority of need to put down striping. At least give it a shot, since we're told, at least on the paved parking lots, that we have to use this white striping. So that's something. I couldn't make out what the second drawing associated with that was intending, and had some cross timbers. I couldn't interpret what that meant. So I think we need to send this back for a few reasons. My personal opinion, I don't know if there are other comments or not yet, but I think we're still too heavy on prioritizing the cost. There are cross references that need to happen. The illustration comments that I just made, the comment that Director Kishimoto made about trails, I noted that as well. It's kind of dictating 6 to 8 foot trails in all cases, and we have a different trail standards than that. The table 4 comment about construction and maintenance. Adding biological to the ecological in the value statement. And what am I missing? That's several things. And there might be more that other people have mentioned. I tried to keep notes.
Chair McNiven, I believe we have a motion on the table. I'll second that motion.
I don't,
I moved the general manager's
you
recommendation.
moved the general manager, but okay. I'm a little confused here. We can review the guidelines as they are, or we can authorize the general manager to add $15,000 to make these changes we're talking about. I suspect, I don't mind the drawings. They're really rather cute, actually. I think they make you look at them because they're so sweet. But so that's just my opinion. But I'm wondering what major additions need to be done other than adding the cross references to our policies.
And
Which-
some general cleanups.
And
yeah.
some general
Yeah.
cleanups.
And
that
there's some,
Director Hoffman-
I agree, there's some inconsistency within the document, like
Yeah.
we can definitely remove that front and center face in the document, and then make sure that, and it is our intent to create that the sense of place, and this document is the focus. The focus of this document is aesthetic design of our parking area. So we can clean up those inconsistency with the document. We can make the references, and there's some suggestions that we will add a specific design element for parking, for bike parkings, and maybe changing the name to staging area. Or
might
maybe
not-
we can
we need to think
brainstorm a
about
little bit.
that one.
Yeah, brainstorm about that.
Brainstorm that,
But
yeah.
the point is well taken. It's not just vehicular,
Yeah. So,
area. Yeah.
so my question is, because you described it very well, is whether we want to add $15,000 more to the budget. Or can you do it with staff time?
If we need to alter the graphics, then I will need the consultant
Yeah.
support. Yeah.
I'm,
And the cost references and the general cleanups, I think staff can do.
I think staff could do it very
Yeah.
well. Well, now I knew this would happen. Let's see. Do you have a comment, Director Kishimoto?
Well, and the other question is whether it should come back to us as a consent item or informational item or an item to be reviewed.
Oh,
Yeah, but
it does need to be reviewed. So let's have it come back at some point. My main question is whether to go ahead with Director Riffle's motion and not authorize $15,000. And thank you for your wonderful report, CSW, Jesse and Bob. Thank you. I do like the drawings. I especially like the one where you've divvied up the parking lot into smaller spaces. I thought that was really cute. So I'm being a bit bossy here, but is it okay if we go ahead and vote on that motion? I need a vote on whether to vote.
You have a motion and a second.
Yes.
Uh,
So we
Well,
have,
can you clarify the motion? Does it
Yes.
include that it would come back to the board?
oh, look, it's on our screens.
Yeah.
Actually, Maria, it's the opposite. Yes. Or at least let me ask
Yes, I
Director
don't-
Riffle, because
I
that's how I
really would-
understood it. How did you, what did
I
you
don't
mean?
think we needed the $15,000. You see what I'm
At
saying?
least that's how I understood it, but I'll defer to
You-
whoever
you
made the
think we
motion.
need the 15,000?
No, we
No,
don't,
we don't
but
need the
I'm
15.
referring to the, so is this,
But there's some
as it's been
changes.
edited,
Oh,
is
is
this
it?
correct
Yeah.
now?
But it doesn't include the cleanup and the changes that I was talking about.
So does that
The
final
final
change
changes.
as a
Final
request by the
changes.
board?
Yes, final changes. I think there was a pretty good list. Yeah? Okay.
So here's the question. So, I agree with Director Kishimoto. It really should come back to us because we're ultimately responsible and there could be, conflicts between other documents and this document.
Right. No.
So it should
Yeah.
come back to us as an action item. And I don't know, it's like, I have a list of probably like 10 or 11 things here. I don't know if staff's captured all of those, and I don't know if all my board members and colleagues, agree with all of those. So where does that leave staff in terms of a direction? So,
Since we are bringing the items back,
I'm sorry?
since we are bringing the items back to the board, you will have an opportunity to review this again and approve. And I'm happy to sit down with you or take your comments and so we can see how we can incorporate into the document. And then you will have a chance to see that when we bring this back.
And then, thank you for that. And then the other thing is, it's sort of like, we've had several comments about not prioritizing the cost and the maintenance cost over other considerations. But yet, for the sake of $15,000, we're not getting additional drawings that are going to give better guidance in this document. So it seems like we're doing the same thing in this motion that we've commented on not so positively in the prioritization of financial consideration. So for $15,000, I would like to see more drawings that give more clear direction and that probably help merge the, let's just say the sign manual with this document. So
maybe a point of order then is, Karen, I respect your thoughts here. I'm happy with what it looks like. Is this Maria? Are you the magic behind what's appearing on our screen?
Luana.
Oh, okay,
Yes.
thank you. I'm happy changing my motion to reflect what you just put here. And I don't know if Director Kirsty Tucker wants to second that or not, but so that would be my approach. But Karen, I think if you don't agree, you could make another motion because at my sense you're heading in a different direction than where I'm going with this. So and maybe we could vote on yours. Just kind of a point of order.
Wow.
I'm good with this, but if you want to change it.
well, I don't know where everybody else is.
Or we
for-
could, or Karen, we could vote on this and see if we got the votes, and if not, then you could make another motion. I mean,
I'm debating on whether to make a substitute motion that would include it or to vote on this first. It's
Okay.
like,
yeah, your call,
Um,
your call.
Whatever
Well,
makes you,
if-
I don't feel the $15,000 is for being penurious. I feel it's, do we have $15,000 worth of drawings?
Well, I don't know how much the drawings cost, but there's significant revisions and I don't know what the $15,000 was for. So maybe there's $7,000 drawings. I have no way of knowing that. So, and I'm not going to try to guess. I don't know.
Interesting.
Well, why don't we just vote on this first?
Let's vote.
Okay.
I need a second for this motion, please.
Director Kirsten Tucker.
Yes, I'll second this motion.
So the motion is before you, Director Gleason.
Yeah, I'll vote no. I would prefer to give Susanna the latitude to work with a consultant if necessary.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, I voted no. I would prefer to give Susanna the latitude to work with a consultant if necessary.
Oh, to spend a little bit more money to.
Director Christine Tucker,
Yes.
Director Riffle,
Yes.
President McNiven,
Yes.
Director Holman,
No.
Director Kishimoto,
I'm gonna vote yes.
Director Seer,
I'm back and forth on those two, beat the living tar out of it. I'm gonna vote no.
thank you. By a motion or by a vote of 4-3, motion passes.
Thank you very much. Do you want to add another motion, or can we do that at a later date? Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
We'll reconvene at 7:20.
mm.
Welcome to this regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District. I am Margaret McNiven, President of the Board of Directors. The meeting is now called to order. It is 7:25. This meeting is being held in person at the district's administrative office and by teleconference. Members of the public can attend and participate in the meeting in person or via Zoom. Instructions for submitting public comments are available on the meeting agenda. Roll call, please.
Director Gleason,
Here.
Director Christine Tucker,
Here.
Director Riffle,
Here.
President McNiven,
Here.
Director Holman,
Here.
Director Kishimoto.
Here.
Director Seer.
Here,
Thank you.
The first item on our agenda is oral communications. For communications on items not on the agenda. I have one public comment. Jenny Whitman.
My name is Jen Whitman. I came to Bear Creek Stables in '99. I became an open space docent and equine trail patrol volunteer to save the stables. But the most amazing thing happened. A whole new world opened up. I love being part open space and a larger docent community, so I dedicated myself to open space and the stables. Renee and Paul are the best. One of my favorite hikes was a small trail circuit that started and ended at the stables. This trail passed through wetlands. Kids would help us rescue the California tree frog tadpoles that were in the road puddles, and we would relocate them to tadpole nurseries at the stables. I noticed right away that any hikes that promised a visit to the stables were packed with children and families. Nancy and I started the Friends of Bear Creek Stables. We did many programs. We hired a professional equestrian environmental company to design an affordable site. We urged the district staff to keep the 100-year-old water line that provided free water to the stables. But Brian Malone told us no, he was concerned about the newts. Later, we saw a sign saying the wetland area was being sprayed by Roundup. Go figure. After several years of being away, I recently visited the stables for the first time. I was shocked and dismayed. It felt like a ghost town. The remaining boarders seemed afraid and silent. I leave you with a question. I know your mission statement. I have lived and breathed it for 25 years. My question is to Brian Malone. What is his mission statement? When I brought these, I thought you might have looked at them. They're actually all the things I did for years, 25 years.
Could you give those to the clerk and she'll pass them down? Thank you.
Kind of a walk through the history of Bear Creek Stables and all the programs that we did. They're all published in the newspapers and local magazines. I'm proud of it. It's 25 years of serving the district. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
At this time, we do not have any virtual public commenters.
Okay. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
One second.
Roll call vote, please.
Director Gleason,
Yes.
Director Christine Tucker,
Yes.
Director Riffle,
Yes.
President McNiven,
Yes.
Director Holman,
Yes.
Director Kishimoto.
Yes.
Director Seer.
yes,
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
All right. Consent calendar items number 1 and 2. Does any member of the board wish to have any item pulled from the consent calendar? Seeing none. Is there any public comment?
There are no public comments on this item.
Thank you. We'll take a vote.
Motion.
May I have a motion, please?
I move the consent calendar. Please. Second.
We'll take the vote.
Director Gleason,
Yes.
Director Christine Tucker,
Yes.
Director Riffle,
Yes.
President McNiven,
Yes.
Director Holman,
Yes.
Director Kishimoto, Director Seer.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
All right, we'll move on to board business. Item 3, resolution approving the preliminary official statement for the issuance of the Measure AA Series 2024 General Obligation Bonds, green bonds.
Good evening, Stefan Jaskulak, CFO. I also have reinforcements online, but I can't quite see who all is there. I see Peter Wong from our financial advisor is online. Is anybody else online, Luana? Maybe Jackie Jennings? Okay, and John Palmer? No? Okay. Jackie is the main author of the document in question today, so I'm glad Jackie is here. So let me just dive in, I suppose. The general manager and controller's recommendation, and the controller is also here for reinforcements, is to adopt a resolution approving the preliminary official statement for the issuance of the Measure AA Series 2024 General Obligation Bonds, green bonds. So the POS for these 2024 tranche of Measure AA bonds basically includes a lot of information. It includes a lot of information on the district itself, on how we operate. It includes a lot of information on our finances, a lot of statistics as well, as far as main employers, how our insurance is structured, what some of the risks are, et cetera, et cetera. It also provides a plan of finance and basically, estimated sources and uses of funds, debt service schedules, property tax information, as well as a tax exempt opinion from ORIC as bond counsel. And then there's other information like continuing disclosure that needs to be in there, information on the underwriters. There's a lot of legal information in there. And of course, information on financial advisor, as well as quite a few financial tables, a lot of which were also in our ACFR, the annual comprehensive financial report that we produce every year at the end of each fiscal year. It's audited. So all of that is in this sizable document. And I emphasize the fact that this is preliminary. So there will be some adjustments here and there, but none of them will be material. All the material information is in this document. And by material, and Jackie can, of course, correct me if I'm misstating it, but material basically means any information that a potential buyer of these bonds would need to know or might actually change their mind of buying them or not, right? And I know there's one item that was already flagged by our eagle-eyed president of the board, that there was a discrepancy in the term for Director Holman. We will correct those kinds of things. It's not material, nothing personal, but it's not material because it wouldn't change the decision for somebody to buy these bonds, for example. Financial statements, information like that, that's a lot more material, for example. I have a lot more information on the bonds themselves. I can go through that and then open it up for questions, or would you like to ask questions on the POS at this point?
Any questions? Director Kirsten Tucker, you okay?
I have a
Yes,
question.
Yes, thank you. I'm fine.
Was
Oh, go
any
ahead, Stefan.
thing
I'll be
covered?
happy to answer.
Thank you. So let me give you a little bit more information on the bonds. You've seen this slide before, actually 2 weeks ago. The interesting thing is the graph. You see, when we first issued bonds, we had the levy at like $1.50, but then as the AV grows, it drops down to like $1.30. Issue new bonds, it pops back up again, and as AV grows, it will drop down again over time. This scenario does not assume any AV growth, but it is always there. And it'll fluctuate, and each year we will, the board will determine what the levy will be. For right now, it looks like we'll pop up to $2, but by the time we get there, it may or may not be $2. And again, we're looking for 37 million. That's our third tranche. That'll get us through 3.5 years of projects and acquisitions. And you can see that the total interest cost, the true interest cost all in, is projected at the moment at about 4.1%. That's pretty good rate. This is actually taken straight from the budget book that we presented to the ABC committee yesterday. Here you can see how the future debt service of the Measure AA bonds will shape up. So the third row is the 2024. Looks at about $2.5 million a year for debt service. So it brings a total per year close to $8 million, so about $7.8 million. And you can also see the breakdown between principal and interest, as well as the fact that we like to do these as flat debt service. That's why you see the dark blue, the bottom is the 2015. The green, when we issued in 2018, of course, it extends an additional 3 years. And then the orange is the 2024, extending an additional 5 years because we're 5 years further down the road. Marketing, we have done this several times quite successfully, I believe, because we're also like to attract residential or individual buyers, not just institutional, also residents from the district. So there will be electronic advertisement. We will, of course, post it on our website. We'll have social media. We'll do an email blast to our distribution list that we have. Investor roadshow, that's still up in the air if we need to do that or not. And it seems like the value is diminished. If nothing else, it'll be a PowerPoint that people can flip through. I used to do the voiceover, and I don't think that the voiceover really adds much. All the information is in the POS, or by then the OS, as well as the PowerPoint. And then Morgan Stanley, our underwriter, we selected them because they have a pretty large wealth management network offices here in the Bay Area that can then also advertise and basically tap into high net worth people that can buy our bonds. And then lastly, Fidelity is a co-seller or available as a co-seller. And as you know, they have all the 401k accounts, et cetera, that can help as well. Then the preliminary financing schedule, we're now on May 8th. That's where I hope you'll, in a few minutes, approve the POS. Week of May 13th, so that's next week. We hope to receive the ratings from S&P, Standard & Poor's. Last week, Controller Mike, the Budget and Finance Manager Rafaela, and myself, the three of us, we had a virtual call with S&P. We gave them all the information, and they asked good questions. And they think they might even get us the ratings by the end of this week, but just to be safe, we figure next week. Fitch, on the other hand, did not need a call. They reaffirmed their ratings a month or so ago at AAA, but they may have a few questions, which of course we'll answer via email. So that shouldn't be a problem either. Then the week of June 10th, we're anticipating the posting of the POS. And then June 24th is when the 60-day validation period starting April 24th at the last board meeting ends, so we can price without challenge and then sell and close first half of July. Money changes hands. So all in all, I mean, it's really a pretty straightforward, plain vanilla exercise. The key is to make sure that everything that's material is in this document, and we've had a lot of eyes on it. Jackie's done a great job, first of all, upcycling the previous ones, updating them, making it more robust. There's certain changes with disclosure, as you know, that have happened that we need to also include. She included all that. We've had several conference calls with the entire group, with Mike, with Rafaela, myself, Hillary, as well as bond counsel, the FA, and Jackie. We really go through it page by page, and also our general manager found a few things that we corrected, and of course our board president found something that we're going to correct, and it's a pretty strong document. So that cycles me back to the general manager and controller's recommendation. Also, I'd like to ask if, Jackie, do you have anything you'd like to add? If you do, you.
Oh, yeah. Hi. Yeah, what I'd like to add is I wish I knew how to use this system, but no, I don't.
Okay.
This is Hillary Stevenson. I just wanted, while we have Jackie's mic unmuted, I just wanted to quickly mention to the board that the action before you tonight is to approve the preliminary official statement, and it was indicated in the CFO's timeline and also in the resolution that's part of your action tonight, that the general manager and the bond team still have the ability to make corrections to the official statement between now and when the bonds go to market. So I know that Disclosure Council plans to comb back through it, and if any of you feel an urge to take one more look for any reason, there's still an opportunity to make last minute changes. So just wanted to offer that we will be making one more stab at it before it's published. Thanks.
So all those gaps where the numbers weren't there, you'll be filling those in by June.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Those will be filled in by the time we go
Yeah.
to market. Yeah.
Make sure you get them all.
Well, no, we also want to point out that in that 60-day window, if anything occurs that requires an update to the disclosure, we'll include that and update that information too. Chair McNiven?
Yes.
Director Christine Tucker. I just wanted to, a couple thoughts that I had on page 13 of the staff report, which says to be updated, but it's the background page on the district. A couple things, of course, our coastal mission is missing. I noticed that it was included elsewhere in the document, but just want to make sure that that's updated. And also, I believe under volunteer programs, of course, we have far more than 500 volunteers assisting the district each year. So just want to make sure that that page is brought up to date.
Yes, absolutely. We flagged that as well on our end. We couldn't update it quick enough because it is taken from a screenshot, but that will be updated. Absolutely.
Got it. Thank you.
Director Kishimoto?
I think there's another typo on, I think, page 1. It says there's 2.6 million people who live in the district. More like 800,000, right? It's a second paragraph from the bottom. It's about 10 lines from the bottom.
I'm looking at a different page 1, but we'll find it and make sure it's accurate. Page 1.
Page 1 of the attachment 2.
think there's multiple page ones. Oh, that's page I.
Yeah, page one of attachment.
Yeah, oh, I see what you're talking, yeah. Estimates lived within, okay. Yeah, it is about 800,000. I think it's 2.6 for the, probably for the combined counties, or maybe just Santa Clara.
Do we have any more questions, comments?
Two very quick questions. First is, let's see, I think we've been pretty much consistently rated AAA by Fitch. And
At least for as long as I've been here, Mike, how long? Much longer than that, I mean.
The municipal bond industry, kind of changed their. The municipal bond, and I can remember when it was 10 or 15 years ago, the municipal bond industry or the whole, no, like maybe it was the rating agencies were rating the municipal issuers too low in relation to the actual risk involved compared to commercial issuers, industrial issuers, and they went through a change. And that was the time that all of a sudden all sorts of very well supported government agencies like the district all of a sudden became AAA rather than AA. And then a lot of the corporate companies all of a sudden lost their AAA and became, AA or worse, or lower. But anyway, we've been AAA for ever since the new guidelines were put in place 10 or 15 years ago.
Great.
So it turns out that every city in the district is AAA also. Redwood City was at AA plus for a while, but we were just told that they were upgraded to AAA. So every city is, and both counties, of course, at AAA as well. I mean, there's no other place in the world probably like Silicon Valley. So I mean, it's not us, it's where we are. We're pretty good too, but
okay, got it. Thanks, Mike. The other quick question, I really like the idea of reaching out to a multitude of investors. And so what would be a minimum investment that, someone that wanted to invest, what would it take?
I want to say it was 5,000. Peter, do you have a sense
Oh,
of
is that right? Oh,
I thought it
Yes,
was.
I think I saw 5,000 there.
It's 5,000.
5,000, yes.
yeah. Okay, well.
I would not recommend any of the people in this room to buy them.
No. I just like the idea, what you just,
Right.
you commented on. So, great. Okay, thanks. So if there's no other, I'd like to move the general manager's recommendation.
We
If you
have a
any public-
motion?
I'm sorry if we didn't have a public comment.
One, two. There are no public comments on this item. And for roll call vote now, Director Gleason,
Yes.
Director Kirstine Tucker,
Yes.
Director Riffle,
Yes.
President McNiven,
Yes.
Director Holman,
Yes.
Director Kishimoto, and Director Sear.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. And of course,
thank you,
true to
Stefan.
form, the room is empty.
Yeah, and thank you, Jackie and Paul, for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to committee reports.
Like ABC, should I go? ABC met yesterday, so ABC is Karen, me, and Craig. And it was first of two meetings. The next meeting will be in 2 weeks, so that'll be the 21st, I think. And staff, as usual, did a great job of preparing the budget book, and we got through about half of it, and we're getting through the next half in the next meeting. And that'll all be coming to you, I think, later on in June, when the board will have a chance to see it, but looks good so far. Committee members, any other comments?
Thank you. Good job. That was, yeah. What? I think that was the only committee meeting, right, Dawn? Thank you. Staff, do you have any reports? Ah,
Just some great news to report. So the Los Vientos access to Pulgas Ridge is opened as of April 26th. No real big issues yet. Crew did a fantastic job. Actually, kind of met all the neighbors' requests for how it was arranged and signing and that kind of stuff. So if you're out there, don't park in front of a neighbor's driveway, but you can check out that entrance, and we'll get some pictures in the bi-weekly next time around.
Great.
where is the park? Where do you park if you go there?
Los Vientos Road off of Crestview.
Oh, there is parking on the road.
There is. That's what the
Yes.
neighbors were concerned about. I'd
Yes.
recommend parking above Best Court. The city
Yes.
decided not to
Red.
sign that no parking or red curb it. And it seems a little narrow, so like politeness wise, I would park above Best Court.
Thank you.
Lots of parking up on Crestview too.
And there's lots of parking at Crestview, just a little walk down if you want to do it that way.
Well done. Thank you.
Which day did that open?
April 26th.
April. Oh, great. Okay. So we've been through weekends and
Yep, a couple weekends. I actually got lots of concerns, emails, while we were opening, but nothing so far after we opened. So, fingers
thank you.
crossed.
Great.
That's
Good
nice.
job.
Hey, director reports. Director Kishimoto.
Let's see. Well, actually, this morning I went to the Together Bay Area conference, and there were several members of the staff there as well. It was well done. It was good. And then on May 2nd, I went to a BCDC meeting as well.
Director Sear.
Well, it wasn't a committee meeting, but Karen and Kurt and I presented to the city council in Sunnyvale yesterday evening, and it went very well. And thanks to Josh for setting up the slide.
I presented at the North Fair Oaks Community Council last week, so I know what you were doing. Nothing? Oh, okay. Director Riffle?
Yeah, just
Before
a-
you do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I'm
Go ahead.
sorry.
Okay. Just a kudos to staff for the Restoration Open House on May 1st that was here. It was really well attended, really well done. And Cody, in fact, just told me that all the placard, the boards, which had a lot of information, is now up on SharePoint. So if you have more information that you wanted to gather, so look forward to that happening maybe in another couple of years. And I attended the opening session of the TBA, which was a virtual, but I think today was probably more fun than that one. So I'm glad you were able to go. That's it.
Okay. Good. Hold on.
I was only going to add about the Sunnyvale Council last night. They were very responsive to the presentation. Three or four of the council members, excuse me, including the mayor, made very complimentary and interesting comments about Midpen, and some of it I feel like we ought to capture for marketing.
Right.
It's very
Right.
good.
Yeah, and Director Kishimoto.
Yeah.
Great. Zoe, are you?
Nothing to report other than I have a San Carlos City Council presentation next Monday. So looking forward to that one.
And last but not least?
Yeah, so I did also attend the Restoration Open House, and that my daughter did as well, and really enjoyed it. So thank you for that. I want to ask for an item to be agendized, and let me just read this so I don't ad-lib it. The board has been aware of issues with the Bear Creek Stables concessionaire for some time. Recently, the general manager took the step of shutting down the lesson and camp programming at the stables, and I applaud that step. Midpenn is the first agency to take such a step with this operator. Based on well-documented and firsthand information provided to me, I believe we have a duty as directors to again review the dynamic situation at Bear Creek Stables. I'm requesting to place on the next agenda either a closed or open session discussion as the district's council advises. I think this discussion is important and timely, and while it's related to the discussion next week on the stables, it's separate.
I don't think we need an extra, we don't need a second. It's not a motion. It's not an action we can take, but I would encourage and support that.
Thank you. I guess just for clarification, I assume you mean the next regular board meeting? I say that because the 14th is where the packet goes out tomorrow.
Sure.
And I'm not sure we would be able to get it in for the 14th.
Okay, as I said, the situation is dynamic. There's new information almost every day. I think it would be good for us to talk through this as soon as possible.
Okay, I can make it ready for well, I'm looking at staff too because it's gonna require some delegation, but we can look at the next board meeting, which is the 22nd, right? The 22nd. I think the conversation of the 14th will probably inform part of what gets presented on the 22nd, because there's some decisions, some considerations that the board needs to take around the stables that again will affect what the operation will be and what type of operator would be needed. So I think that it'll be sort of it'll inform what that next agenda item would look like. If that makes sense. I hope that does.
I have a question, which is, well, how much can we say? Because it's in agendized. I looked to the district's attorney here. Whether it's on the 14th or the 21st, did you say?
22nd.
22nd. Might depend on whether it's open session or closed session, because it probably, so.
I'll defer to you.
So if a single board member is asking for an item to be added to the agenda, I guess I'll leave it to, at least for now, to the general manager and that board member to determine what the recommended action is, if any, and how that's agendized, right? So in order to agendize an item, we always want the public to be aware of what the proposed action is. And then we'd fashion an agenda presentation or an agenda item or a recommendation based on that. It has been, there have been times, I believe, when a board member has provided a memo or some sort of materials on their own accord or worked with the general manager to formulate a recommendation or a discussion topic so that we can properly agendize it. I don't personally have any information right now about whether there's grounds for closed session. Those grounds are narrow. So if we were to agendize some closed session item, then I'll obviously be involved in whatever discussion there is about the proposed topic or the proposed action of this. So I guess that's all I can offer at this point, just that, we always try to put an recommended action or at least a discussion topic on the agenda, and we'll need to do some work to formulate that.
I'm a little confused because I think what Karen is asking, which is a good question. Who decides what this is going to be? Sounds like Craig's got an idea of what he'd like to be discussed, and then what he works with Anna to decide this is what it's going to be, and it goes open or closed.
So there is a policy about a board member, being able to add an item to the agenda. If there's a specific investment of time, then the general manager needs 4 nods that time is going to be spent by staff. So I'm not sure, we're going to have to find a way to determine that perhaps at the special meeting next week. There could be some 4 nods about whether there needs to be, what the nature of that next agenda item should be.
Yeah.
That might be my suggestion right now. But there is a process. If it's that a board member wishes to make a presentation or a written recommendation or something, the policy allows any board member to do that. To the extent that it requires staff time, then the general manager needs board direction in order to spend staff time on that.
But I think, that's asking a good question though, is who determines whether it's open or closed? I mean, I really think it needs to be, loved for it to be open, but is that where you come in, Hillary? To
Well,
say, you know what, this should be a closed session?
Yeah, and the Brown Act provides very limited categories of safe harbor topics for discussion. So facts and circumstances that would constitute, the threat of litigation, for example.
Yeah.
Well, I personally am not aware of those at this moment, but, certainly I can confer with Director Gleason, but there are very limited reasons for us to convene a closed session. So hopefully that helps.
Any more? Any more?
Sorry, I'm not sure what we just did. So do we have something on the agenda for the 22nd of May, or it's TBD next week, or?
So I wonder if you could repeat your request again. Yeah.
Do you want me to read the whole thing or? Okay. So, I mean, the specific part, the request was, I said, I'm requesting to place on the next agenda either a closed or open session discussion as the district's council advises. Do you want me to go back over the original? Okay. So I said the board has been aware of issues with the Bear Creek Stables concessionaire for some time. Recently, the general manager took the step of shutting down the lesson and camp programming at the stables, and I applaud that step. Midpen is the first agency to take such a step with this operator. Based on well-documented and firsthand information provided to me, I believe we have a duty as directors to again review the dynamic situation at Bear Creek Stables. I'm requesting to place on the next agenda either a closed or open session discussion as the district's council advises. I think this discussion is important and timely, and while related, is separate from next week's discussion on the stables.
Just a procedural question, and I think it's quick. I think, Hillary, you said that if an item that a board member recommends being or suggests or asks that be agendized takes a staff time of some extent, I don't know what that is, then the board needs to vote on that. But my question is, let's just say, I'll make up something, so we're not talking about this still. Let's just say that board president says, hey, I've seen a lot of flooding across such and such an access to such and such a trail or preserve. What if the general manager decides like, well, that's something that I should bring forward anyway? So then do you need the discussion about whether the board member's suggestion needs a discussion among the board for approval? Does that make sense?
To me, it seems like the board's not going to vote on anything tonight. We have a board member that's asking to agendize something about Bear Creek Stables, but we don't have more information than that. We're going to have a special meeting on Tuesday related to the stable, so that is agendized, and there will be actions recommended by the board, by the GM, that are going to be before you on Tuesday night. To the extent that doesn't address what Director Gleason would like to cover in a meeting, my suggestion is that we get some additional information from Director Gleason about what he'd like to agendize, and then that way we can plan for what that additional agenda item is going to be at that time.
Just to be clear, my topic is about the concessionaire and the management of the stables, and not the long-term direction of the stables.
And I guess I'll just add it that a lot of the discussion that will occur on the 14th and the decision that will be up for your discussion and action has implications as to the long-term operation of that site, which then affects whether we have a concessionaire and what kind of concessionaire we have. And so it feels to me a little bit like we need to have that discussion first to then take the next step as to the concessionaire. Because I know there are issues with the current concessionaire, but I need board direction based on all the information we've gathered and what we have to date on what that operation will look like moving forward. Because again, that will affect if a concessionaire is needed and what type of concessionaire is needed. I think so. Yes. To then move forward and bring forward for the 22nd, that item. Right, because whatever actions you do take, there are some major implications as a result. And so I need to be able to provide that information to you so that you can then provide the direction.
So I think what I'm hearing, if I could say, Director Gleason, are you comfortable waiting until we've conducted our meeting next week? And then if there are additional issues that you would like to bring to the board's attention to agendize, you do so then?
I think this is the process we can proceed with. It's not a matter of me being comfortable.
Well, you may still have issues that, you don't feel have been adequately addressed next week, but at which point you may want to, make those plain to the board member, to the rest of us.
Yeah, I think one thing I heard was that there's a process, for a board member to provide a memo or work with the GM to provide it. I will explore that with Anna.
Okay.
There's a piece on that in one of the policies on board meetings. So
And
there's a piece.
this is
on
General Counsel
how to-
Stevenson.
yeah.
I'll work with the clerk to pull that blurb up and we'll make that available so that it's really clear what the procedure is.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have it at my fingertips at this very moment.
Nor do
but
I.
Thanks.
I know it's there. I think it's coming through. Or nods. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm still, might be a little confused. So next week's meeting is, obviously it's open session, right? Yeah. And so Director Gleason's request is going to be agendized for discussion. I mean, for a vote, whether there's going to be 4 board members who want to agendize it for the future? For more than,
Why don't we confer more with Director Gleason so that we can ensure that this is agendized appropriately at a future meeting? I think if you're all willing to leave it there, we can
Okay, yeah,
determine that.
very confusing, yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Craig. Okay. And on that note, I'll adjourn the meeting, 8:09.